What are your thoughts on everything you heard Monday night from the president?
My thoughts are it's a retread of what we've seen for the past 4 presidential terms. They've changed a little bit on how they're going to a condition-based versus a time-based. And it's a double-edged sword because you can't communicate those conditions to the media or the American public because then the enemy will fight against those conditions. So we're essentially going blindly into this fight for another presidential term with thousands of more soldiers without really knowing what a win looks like. And as we believe, when you create a win, you also create a loser. So instead of us going there winning, we should be there helping. You know, we've gone beyond the point of chasing down Al-Qaeda and trying to win an insurgency, a counterinsurgency in Afghanistan, and we really need to focus on helping that nation stand up on its own.
You mentioned that one of the challenges has been direction changes across administrations. So you've also said that we're kind of now on a path to do more of the same. But describe the distinction between that, because we definitely did have direction changes between the Bush administration and the Obama administration, particularly between the surge and the withdrawal and some of the fluctuations that have happened.
When we initially started the war in Afghanistan, we were highly successful in the ground politically, socially, and economically. And I believe that was fantastic. When we were both there during that time period, we could feel the energy of the Afghan people, and their comments and their attitude toward us was, you are here to help us. You're here to help us come out of poverty, provide education, jobs, healthcare. And then we got distracted by Iraq. The majority of the force went to Iraq, and we abandoned Afghanistan, and it was felt in the country. Then we worked our way through Iraq, and then back over to Afghanistan again. Once we took our eyes off the ball, we saw insurgents come in, really being able to push that propaganda of, hey, the Americans abandoned you to go to Iraq. And then we had Obama in the first office. We had the initial troop surges, which were highly successful, and then the immediate withdrawal. And we felt and saw the power vacuum come out of the country. They're having the largest car bombs, IEDs, violence attacks on civilians as they've ever had in their nation's history in the latter half of the Obama administration. And now we're going back into the country and saying, hey, we're going to deny them their terrain, we're going to stop their money, and we're going to eliminate them. And at the same time, we're not going to do any nation building. It's the same thing we've been trying to do. We've been trying to deny them terrain, we've been trying to deny them money, we've been trying to eliminate them. But it's tough to fight a counterinsurgency when they're living among civilian populations. It's the same thing we have been doing. The focus should really be diplomatic and economic and international strategic policy changes in order to really put the pressure on the safe havens that are creating the environments within Afghanistan. And the president actually called it out. He called out Pakistan on that. And as soldiers and service members who stood on that border and watched the enemies, and we couldn't go get them because they were in Pakistan, and we could knowingly communicate that, it was very frustrating to not only us, but the multiple generations of service members who have been over there since. And now, hopefully, we have a little bit more clarity on how that's going to work, how we're going to align with India and move forward. But again, sending more troops is a retread of the same policy. Not doing any long-term sustainable nation building is a retread of the last policy. And with the change to the time-based from the time-based approach to the condition-based approach, it's good, but again, it doesn't provide any clarity to the U.S. taxpayer, Congress, or the American people. And so I think it's the same thing we've been seeing for the last 16, 17 years. The strongest weapon we can use to positively change that nation with all of American citizens and service members is our economy. If we just simply help them be competitive on a global market, it would help out significantly at a very human level. I think that's the first one that we could get. Second is we could actually have true diplomatic relations where state, commerce, and trade are all working together to provide real tangible results that are going to create jobs, put schools and hospitals that are culturally relevant in Afghanistan. I don't think we do that across the entire country. I think we do it in areas where our service members and diplomats and economic advisors can be safe, and we help those areas that are truly interested in moving forward. I think once we do that and prove that positive change and shift in American policy, the other areas that are inhabited by insurgents or might not have culturally been aligned with us in the past might see the prosperity that comes from good economic and state and political policy.
I think schools and infrastructure would be a big win. Build the schools, build the hospitals, educate the population, educate the women, educate the children. I think that would be the biggest win. We've Griff and I Griff, me and Andy have talked about this, quite a bit. Where, when you start educating women, they educate their children. The children grow up to be educated adults. Educated adults are least likely to be radicalized. So when you do that, you're effectively taking away from the radical recruitment base. Education is the big one, but you start building other things like hospitals. People can go there and get medical care. You open these hospitals, all of a sudden doctors have a place to go to practice medicine. There's jobs, all the support staff they need there. You open up schools, teachers have a place to go and teach. I think that's the most important win. I think that's the best thing we can do for that country.
I think that's a centralized government in Afghanistan is a far reach. It's a very far reach. And a lot of these statements that are said, and all respect to them and their service, is they've never carried a rucksack up and down an Afghan mountain. They've never had to live in an Afghan village, and they don't understand the fundamental flaws of what's going on. There's no education. People can't read. They can't get health care. They're suffering from malnutrition, and we can help that. If we take care of those fundamental things and we support the government that provides legitimacy through providing those services, then that'll happen naturally. And it's going to be very diverse across Afghanistan just because of the tribal considerations and how that country has been formed over the past 500 to 600 years. A centralized government in Afghanistan is a far reach. Yeah.
But you're saying that little steps can make a difference.
Yes. I think when the government is able to provide education and health care to people, regardless of their position or where they're at, that's going to add legitimacy to the Afghan government. Right now, they're not providing those centralized services to the Afghan people.
When you talk about a centralized government, we go there as Americans, and we have an idea of what a centralized government is. That's not necessarily what they think a centralized government is. There's a big cultural difference between us and them. And we go in and we try and say, okay, this is what your government should look like. It's not a cookie cutter thing you can put in place. It's what the people want. It's what they're used to. It's how they run their country. It's the culture. Empower them. I mean, honestly, give them jobs. Give them a place to go and make an honest living. That's going to take somebody off the street that could potentially be approached by a radical and say, hey, I'll give you $100 if you go dig a hole and put a bomb in the street. You give somebody a job, they're going to take the job and the honest living before they take something like that.
So talk about how you're trying to do that on what's starting as small scale, right, with your own company.
So we started, when I got out of the military in 2006, I started traveling back to Afghanistan in 2008 and 9 as a businessman. And when you're there without a gun on the table, your interaction with the community is very different. We got to actually meet the son of Afghanistan's hero, Ahmad Shah Massoud. And there's a very cool line that he said to us. He says, Afghans love visitors. We just don't like invaders. He's like, you're a visitor here, you are welcome. And if we need to start taking that approach as just even as businessmen or as people, hopefully we can lead by example and have our diplomats and our service members in our country act the same way in Afghanistan. So we started with the simple idea of taking military capacity in Afghanistan that the U.S. taxpayer paid for and then keeping it running with civilian commercial production after the fact. U.S. service members had put forward an immense price in order to create those opportunities for those Afghan people, and we would like to see it happen sustainably. We mentioned an honorable and sustainable exit from Afghanistan, and creating a long-lasting business approach to Afghanistan is the way to do it. So we started making footwear and clothing and apparel in Afghanistan, and it's moved on to other countries, and we've proven that you can go to these conflict areas and make a positive small difference through trade.
And you're making, just to list some of that you just did, but list all the products, and we'll get a look at them later. But just what exactly are you making, who's making it, and then who are you selling it to? So
in Afghanistan, we make our textiles there. So we work in a woman-owned and operated factory in Kabul, Afghanistan. We make shamas, sarongs, and scarves. And one factory, we make scarves and shamas, and another factory. And then through the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors out of DC, U.S. veteran, through a veteran widow support group called TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. They have partnered with Afghan war widows to create jewelry, so lapis jewelry that's made there in Afghanistan. So we support Afghan war widows within the borders. Yeah. And then we make product in Colombia. All of our footwear is made in Colombia. We make jewelry out of landmines in Laos. We make bags and T-shirts right here in the United States, and we're constantly looking for active or post-conflict areas to manufacture product to prove that it is possible to do this.
With every piece, and wherever we manufacture, every piece that we sell, it actually funds a day of education for an Afghan woman. The jewelry we make, it clears 3 square meters of landmines for every piece that we sell. So, we talked about education, the importance of it in Afghanistan. We're actually supporting it. This year, how many years of school we funded?
Year to date, it's over 170 girls have gone to school through the purchase of our products. In company history, I think we're upwards of 400 girls have gone to school. And there's a saying in Afghanistan, drop by drop, a river is made. Everything cool starts small. And we just started small. We've been grinding at it, and we've seen the successes that have come from it. There are a whole bunch of Americans that believe in what we're doing, and they supported us. And it started with the military, and now it's moved out to other groups, and it's fun. Our position as service members that now serve is we support the person and not the policy. And as people who have experienced that conflict and that pain and the heartache and the struggle getting out, everything from the first day in service all the way through transitioning out of the military back into civilian life, we've been through the process, and now it's our job as former service members to do our best to help you. And that's advocating for better public policy, better follow-on policy, and anything we can do to support them in their mission, because they deserve that.
Be safe. That's the biggest one. Be safe. Come home.
When do you think we'll have an end?
If we keep the same approach to Afghanistan, if we keep going down the same road, that end is gonna be a long way away. Trump said we're looking for a win. It's a win. What are we trying to win? We went in there and we got bin Laden. We got the guy that was responsible for 9/11. What are we trying to win? What is a win? I don't understand. Like, that's the hardest thing for me to understand. What is a win? Like, are we just going to go in there and destroy everybody? No, that's not a win. And Griff and I had a conversation last night, and I realized that my oldest son is 3 years away from fighting the same war that I fought. 3 years. That's kind of nuts. That's really nuts. I don't think there's going to be a win per se. I think the end would be. I think the end is going to be the long-term play that we talked about. Getting people educated, getting people jobs. Once everybody starts getting the education that they deserve, they can start contributing to on a world stage. They can start contributing to the world again. Give them a sense of pride.
I think everybody really just wants the bombs to stop. Like, on both sides, everybody just wants it to stop.